Now, if you're aware of Red Bull, they do a lot of crazy stuff with their marketing, whether it's public entry events to extreme sports and stunts. Of those events, you probably know of Flutentag or the Soapbox Race, but a lesser known one that usually kind of huddles and reserves itself to college campuses is the Chariot Race. Now, one of these Chariot races came to my area recently, specifically the beautiful state of Oregon, and me and my buddies decided to throw our hat into the ring and enter as competitors. We managed to get an entry into this event, and we had a blast competing here. Now, the general overview when these events come to an area is, one, they'll announce it somewhere very public, usually their website, and then they'll have a few affiliated social media accounts, whether it's a local business or partner, announce it. Once they announce it, there'll be a form that opens up where basically teams can apply to compete in the event. Once the application window closes, it's usually about a week or two. They will then select teams, and a week after the selection is announced, there is a mandatory briefing meeting that they refer to as a kickoff party. At this kickoff party, they're going to go over a general overview of the rules for all the teams. Every team is going to give an impromptu presentation of what their build is. And at the end of it, you get a gift box that, in our case, had a tape measure, disposable camera, a bunch of candies and Red Bull. But most importantly, there's a $200 prepaid debit card that every team gets. So $200 of your build is subsidized by Red Bull. After this meeting, you get pretty much a month to make your build, make your craft, refine your skin, up until competition day where you actually perform and race. However, before you can even plan your skit, you got to submit the form and get into the event in the first place. Now, I'm going to go through our experience with the form, or our group scenario, because I really think this is going to bring up a lot of points of emphasis for this form. Now, they asked for a couple things on this. One is an address. I gave them my own address, which is 70 miles from Eugene. I then gave them my own personal Instagram handle because they asked for a social media handle. My personal Instagram has less than 200 followers. The other thing is, despite the reporting of the student newspapers, shout out Daily Emerald here, this event is not exclusive to students. It is a open entry sweepstakes like every single one of Red Bull's other events. Anyone from the general public is allowed to enter. There is nothing in the event terms that restrict it to students or mention enrollment status. So, the point I'm trying to make here is it doesn't matter if you're affiliated with the university, and it frankly doesn't matter even if you can be just over an hour outside of town. As long as your idea is good enough, or as long as their team reviewing the applications likes your idea enough, you can get into this event. Now, obviously, I mentioned the skit. Your build has a theme, and you are the performer here. I would advise if you do get an entry in this event, get your skit down early, because they're going to ask you for the backing audio for it a week after the kickoff party. So there's going to be about 3 weeks between the kickoff party, the orientation, and the actual competition, where you're going to be locked into whatever audio you submit to them for your skit. The build, you can kind of rush or at the end if you need to. The skit, you can't really do that because you're going to be locked into what your skit is pretty much 3 weeks in advance. So that would be the one thing to keep in mind. Now, the build is fairly straightforward. It's you and your buddies getting together, putting together a chariot that meets the specifications. Now, I'll leave this to you to look into when you actually look into the event, because it's kind of boring to go over it, but because this video is more about general advice. All right, there frankly is not one answer of how to do a proper chariot. In our case, we pretty much went with wheelbarrow tires with with welding rods to be our axles, and then we built a frame out of plywood and 2x4s. Other groups simply just sat a slab of plywood over caster wheels and did a cardboard chassis. Other groups took bikes, cut up the bikes, and welded them together. The one thing I would advise against is using pre-made chassis or pre-made bike trailers. There was 2 groups that showed up with chariots based on pre-made bike trailers, and they both did poorly. They both couldn't support the weight or fell apart in some way. The other thing is the rules do have a condition prohibiting parts kits or pre-build stuff. So in some ways, depending on how much is done for you by a chassis, you might encroach on the spirit of the rules in a little bit by just virtue of not making a unique creation. But otherwise, you're going to get a lot of moments of the build, and I would just say start early, because you're going to get started with your build and you're just going to want to add details after details. You're going to get so many ideas, and frankly, there's going to be iterations with it throughout the build process. They're usually going to, the Red Bull team is also usually very helpful with this. They'll be available for advice for builds. They'll be checking in for photo updates. They'll even stop by your build site to drop you some product. And it's overall just a fantastic experience. Like even though our team didn't place high enough for podium prizes, like throughout this whole thing, just by virtue of the amount of products we got from them and the night out we had after the event, it frankly, I think, cost-wise, I think for everyone involved on our team, it just kind of evened out. We all were just like, you know what? We got enough free stuff for this in return that the money we did spend out of pocket, it was made up for by the experience. But once you do get your build, then it's race day. Fairly straightforward. At this point, it's a matter of executing. I think as previously before, as mentioned with the importance of the skit and being a showman, make sure, dress in costumes, be wacky, silly and whimsical above all else. Wins the day at the race day. But pretty much judges are going to come around. They're going to judge your build before you race, so they'll get to see the build as constructed. And then outside of that, it's on you to perform your skit. It's on you to perform on the race course. And usually, only thing I can really tell you about this is like the course is not going to be super long. It's maybe going to be a quarter mile at most, out and back. So you don't have to run too far. It's more of a sprint than it is a distance race, is the key thing to know. So with that, that's pretty much all I'm going to say. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe. And I obviously didn't put much effort into this. It's been months since the event, but hopefully this was a help to some of you if you are considering doing a Red Bull Chariot event. And I would imagine some of their other events are fairly similar, whether it's soapbox race and flute and tug. So if you came to this video looking for advice, hopefully that satisfied you. But otherwise, have a nice day.